Hello and welcome to my channel and to this video where we are going to be talking about trying to be consistent with your painting practice. I have actually tried to record this now 3 times by sitting in front of the camera and trying to make a more interesting video, but it's not working, so I'm reverting back to my usual voiceover over the top of a painting. So we're going to watch this time lapse of a penguin being painted, and I am going to share my tips with you about how I try and stay on track with my painting routine and how I try and be consistent with my painting practice, because that is sometimes a lot easier said than done. Painting regularly is obviously such a good way of trying to get better as an artist, so it's something that I always want to do, but you know, life gets in the way sometimes. Sometimes you're busy and sometimes you're tired and your routine just kind of goes out the window, and I know that I like to procrastinate a lot, so that can get in the way of being consistent. So in this video I'm going to share a selection of things that I do to try and stay on track. So the first point for me is a really simple one, but I think it's very helpful, and that is to leave your painting equipment kind of as set up as it possibly can be, so that when you do have some time to paint, you can be sitting down and painting within about 5 minutes of deciding that that's what you want to do. Because otherwise, if it's going to take me half an hour to find where I left all of my painting supplies and get everything together, I know that I am going to use that as an excuse and I'm probably not going to do any painting. So what that means is just making sure that my brushes are washed when I finished a painting so they're ready to go the next time, that my palette is scraped down, that I don't have loads of colour mixes just sitting in the middle drying up and getting hard to remove. I also try and leave things kind of set up if I can. I know it's not always possible. I can't leave my paintings exactly where I left them because I work on a table where we also eat, so that would not be practical. So to get around that, I work on a desk easel and I just lift it out of the room when I'm finished and put it out of the way somewhere. And then when I want to come back to it, I can just carry it back in, put it on the table and get started. I usually leave my painting sitting on the easel so it's all set up and ready to go, and I have minimal setup time. Really, this is just about removing obstacles so that I don't have any excuses not to paint and I can just actually sit down and get on with it. My second tip when it comes to trying to build up a consistent painting practice is to try and think of some goals of things you'd like to achieve by the end of each month. And I just mean like really simple, easy to reach targets that you want to have done by the end of that month, like a certain number of paintings that you'd like to have finished, or maybe a certain number of YouTube videos you like to make. For me, that's helpful because it gives me focus and a bit of direction, like something that I'm aiming towards. Because if I don't have like tangible things that I'm trying to achieve, I will just not do very much because I have a way too laid back approach, and I'll think, well, it doesn't really matter if I don't do any painting today, and so no painting will get done. For example, this year I've been trying to be a bit more consistent with YouTube, so I've been trying to finish a painting and have a YouTube video made each week so that I've done about 3 or 4 each month. And that helps me to stay on track because it gives me something to aim towards. It's kind of holding me accountable because it's going on YouTube. I'm not just doing this for myself, but there is a reason behind it. And it gives me that focus and makes me feel like I actually do have to sit down and make that time for painting. From that monthly goal, you can then work it back and think, right, what do I need to do each week to be able to achieve that bigger goal at the end? And sometimes just having like that task list will be the motivation that you need to actually get something done, because ultimately, I guess that's the issue, isn't it? We're our own source of motivation. So if we can't motivate ourselves to paint consistently, then no one else is going to do it for us. So this tip is all about just having a goal that you really do want to reach so that you can motivate yourself to be consistent and stick to it. So for tip number 3, something that really helps me to be more consistent is to start off any new painting routine pretty slow and steady and build up to painting more regularly rather than just throwing myself into it and trying to do too much too soon. This tip has been learnt the hard way by me through lots of trial and error and doing it the other way around and failing multiple times. So usually when I want to start a better painting routine and I want to be more consistent, I will just throw myself into it because I'll get really excited about being more productive, and I'll think, right, I'm going to get up at 5 every morning and I'm going to paint for like 3 hours before I start my day, and I'm going to do all of the painting all of the time. And it obviously doesn't last. I just burn myself out a little bit. I end up exhausted because I just can't keep up to it, and then I inevitably end up quitting. I do think it's easy to overdo it when you're trying to start a new painting routine, because you want to be able to paint as often as possible and improve yourself as an artist and get a better skill as an artist, and you want to do that through painting as often as possible. And there's nothing wrong at all with having an ambitious target and thinking, you know, I really would like to paint nearly every day of the week and maybe just have one day off, or paint every evening Monday to Friday, and wanting to achieve that long term. But I think a nice sustainable way of doing that is to just take that a day at a time and build up to that longer routine, rather than trying to do all of that in one go and then feeling like it's a bit too much and you can't keep up with it, and then you end up doing nothing at all. So have a think about your schedule and what you could realistically fit in, and even if that's just one day to begin with, like, oh, I can do a couple of hours of painting on a Saturday, start there and stick to it and be consistent and have that as your painting day, and use that as like your base, and then from there you can increase on that. So maybe you'd do a few more hours on that Saturday, or maybe you'd start to introduce another day in the week, and just go slow and steady until you've reached where you want to be with your painting practice. But I think by doing that slowly and gradually, it's probably more likely to be sustainable than if you just try and do everything all at once and get a little bit too busy and feel like you can't keep it up long term. So my last tip, because I feel like we're running out of time lapse now, so I'm gonna keep this quick. My last tip is to consider doing some small paintings that you can have finished in like 1 to 2 hours within your painting practice time. I find it very rewarding to have a painting finished at the end of a painting session, and that encourages me more than most other things to keep coming back and painting when I know I'm going to have something to show for it at the end. And sometimes you don't always get that. If you're working on a larger project that's going to take you weeks or months to finish, it's not as rewarding when you've sat down for several hours and you can't really tell that there's that much of a difference to the painting. I think by trying to fit in a little extra time to do these small painting studies where you challenge yourself to see how much you can paint within a set amount of time, and you have an actual finished painting to show for it at the end, that encourages me, like I said, more than most other things, to keep coming back and being consistent with my practice. If you've reached a point in a larger painting or a more detailed painting where you're not feeling that encouraged anymore because it's taking you a while to finish and you're a little bit disinterested in it, it's going to be harder to convince yourself to take the time to sit down and paint. So breaking up some of those larger projects with something small and simple and quick to do should hopefully help with motivation in the short term, so that eventually you can go back to that larger piece without skipping any painting practice in between. And that just about wraps up this video. Thanks for joining me. My tea has run out now, so I think I'm gonna go make another one, and I'll see you next time. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and liked seeing this penguin painting come together. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you have any tips on staying productive and keeping up with your painting practice? Let me know. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and I will see you next time.